Fortunately, making sense out of the Man of Steel's super senses is a little more plausible when discussing his super hearing.
Nathan, everything's set. As soon as I'm out, get rid of the Ross kid. There will be his plan in Metropolis.
Superman would have to have a very, very sensitive ear mechanism that could be very much designed after ours. Superman may have a tympanic membrane, a specialized eardrum that takes even the tiniest of sounds and translates them into the sound energy that's sent to our brain.
Another of the Man of Steel's superpowers involves the most basic ability of all, breathing, or in his case, super breathing.
Super breath is his ability to take in a certain volume of air, a great volume of air, compress it in his lungs like a super compressor.
We can put the air in this room in a very small tank, like a scuba tank. So maybe what Superman can do is take a deep breath with this powerful musculature and have it compressed much like a scuba tank, and then when necessary or when he wants to, perhaps he blows this air out with a vengeance.
Super breath is great to have. Of course, you will need a super toothbrush and perhaps some super dentine.
Okay, let's assume that Superman, as seen here in Lois and Clark starring Dean Cain, can use super breath to put out fires or even freeze objects. But does someone have to be from Krypton in order to change the temperature of their breath?
You can do this demo at home. If you purse your lips and blow, you'll feel cool air. If you just breathe with open mouth, it's warm air. It's the difference in how your mouth forms and that tiny orifice coming out that forms the cool air.
We've all done it with soup. He just does it to a super extent. Hot. Cold.
If Superman has super breath, he must have super lungs and need oxygen just like humans. But if that's the case, how can we explain his ability to fly into the upper stratosphere or even into outer space? Is Superman so invincible that he doesn't even need oxygen to stay alive? It's one thing to read about Superman's superpowers in a comic book. It's another to see them dramatized in a movie or television series. In Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, the Man of Steel, as played by Christopher Reeve, seems to have no trouble at all walking on the moon and hurling a net full of nuclear bombs into the sun.
Even though Superman's a superhero, he probably wouldn't do too well in space without a pressure suit or an oxygen mask. In the zero vacuum conditions of space, your blood would boil, the oxygen would leave your body, it'd be a very painful and horrible death.
Superman also might want to take it easy when he takes Lois Lane out on a date high above Metropolis. If he isn't careful about how high he flies, the lack of oxygen and the cold temperatures could present a problem for his passenger.
He couldn't take them really high. I'm talking airliner altitudes. Because as we know, climbing mountains on Earth, for example, like Everest, 10,000, 20,000 feet, the air gets pretty thin up there.
Lois was scantily clad for a lot of that flying around. She was in a light dinner dress, which is not what you wear to space. If you're going to take your date into, the stratosphere, tell them to bring a jacket, because it's freezing up there, man.
You okay?
Uh-huh.
In some recent incarnations, writers and animators have tried to scale down some of Superman's less plausible superpowers in an effort to make the character more science-friendly.
In the 80s, we did a huge revamp on Superman from the ground up. A writer named John Byrne came along and revamped Superman, and at that point he was really seriously powered down. We wanted him to really be able to break a sweat. We wanted him to not be able to fly through space unaided.
In 1997, Superman the Animated Series showed the last son of Krypton wearing a pressurized spacesuit while traveling through the galaxy.
The thing is, once you write that character for any length of time, you've got to really start pushing the things that he can do, and frankly, that's kind of the fun of the character too. I mean, he's not like everyday man, he's Superman.
But even if the earthbound laws of physics don't apply to the character of Superman, they still have to apply to the world around him, especially for filmmakers and animators who have to translate the Man of Steel's comic book adventures to the big screen.
This looks like a job for Superman.
In the Max Fleischer cartoons, they actually did a lot of live-action mimicry, and a lot of care was taken to the physical logic. For instance, a train trestle will be broken, and Superman will catch the front of the train and carry it over, and instead of just kind of help the train over, he'll slip to the caboose and catch the caboose and make sure it gets set on the tracks, because the reality is you can't just land a train. It's in segments. It's going to go all over the place.
For the scene in Superman Returns, in which Superman rescues a falling airliner, director Bryan Singer and writers Michael Dougherty and Dan Harris made sure to show their hero putting up a tough fight that is as science plausible as it is spectacular.
He is fighting against gravity and physics. And so if he's trying to save a jet and he's holding onto the edge of a wing, it's not easy.
The wing gets very stressed and it ends up breaking off. The reality is, the last thing that's probably ever going to happen on a commercial airplane is your wing's going to break off. But we managed to get a hold of a 747 wing stress test, where they built a series of hydraulics that would bend the wing to its breaking point.
We put the plane into a flat spin, sort of reflecting footage that we saw. When Superman grabs the wing, he can't overcome the centrifugal force to get it to fly straight. And they see the wing bending and failing through here. And then it's a catastrophic error on Superman's part. You see the plane go immediately into a spin.
You created more of a challenge, I think, by drawing on that idea that he does have to fight against physics.